Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have another great guest episode I'm so excited for you guys to listen to. I had Mark Blacknell. He's a former Marine turned Zen meditation guide. And oh my Lord, this man, what a ride. I cannot wait for you to hear his story. Even I was blown away. I knew very little about him when I reached out to see if he would be on my show. And oh my goodness, I was not disappointed. Quite the life. So I'm so excited for you to hear his story and hear all about how he supports not just the general public, but prisoners, even death row inmates, on working on meditation and mindfulness, as well as senior citizens, two groups of people that tend to be overlooked in these fields. So he is just a dynamic individual. Can't wait for you to listen to this episode. Before we get to that, if you love and appreciate this show and what I do, please head over to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula and show me a little love there. With the money I receive from my Patreon, I provide pro bono support within my community and when and where I can to those who might not otherwise be able to afford my services. So if you want to help me give back, please head on over there, patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. But that's not why you're here today. You're here to listen to this amazing conversation with Mark Blacknell. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again this week. I am so excited about today's episode. I'm excited about every episode, but I'm very excited about this episode too. I'm happy to have with me today Mark Blacknell. And I have his bio. I could read it, but Mark, would you introduce yourself? I want you to use your words and tell my listeners who you are.
Oh boy.
I know. It's cliche, but I feel like I go on a podcast and somebody reads my bio and I'm just sitting there awkwardly, and then what do I say? So,
Oh no, I always love it. I'm like, wow, I sound really cool.
that's me. Did I
No.
write that?
Yeah.
Right?
Who
Yeah.
wrote
You
that?
and, you and I have
Yeah.
both been guests on podcasts, so we get it. Anyway, so would you tell my listeners a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do?
Well, I'm just a normal guy. I've been meditating for quite a long time. I wouldn't say, there's some people who have been in the system, let's just say, a lot longer than I have. But I spent a lot of time just staring at a wall, alone for various reasons. I mean, there's reasons why that occurred, but I just started to feel like my wall was kind of my refuge. And I just spent an awful lot of time there, in silence
Right.
and stillness, and just staring at the wall, not closing my eyes, keeping my eyes open. And
Mhm.
and after a lot of time doing that, I decided, okay, well, now I'll bring what I learned at the wall out into my community, but I didn't really know how to do it. And I'm not the type of person who's inclined to promote and all that type of stuff. So I kind of just waited for the universe, nature, Buddha, God, whatever you want to call it, the coach, to kind of send things my way. And I waited quite a long time. I
Okay.
started to maybe doubt if the seed was growing. And
Yeah.
the weirdest thing happened. I decided, you know what? I always wanted to teach meditation to seniors. So maybe I'll just
Ooh.
walk in a senior home and I'll
Okay.
just tell them who I am and tell them what I want to do and see what happens. So I did
Okay.
actually take a step out, and I
Okay.
actually picked a senior home and I walked in it.
Okay.
But I had no clue what was behind those doors and that it would grow so much fruit.
Okay.
So I kind of walked in there and I was like, yeah, hey. And this is how I really talk, like, hey, I kind of do this meditation thing and I would love to help seniors. I'd love to volunteer. And they're like, you're going to have to talk to the activities director.
Been there. Yep.
And then they get on the radio, Christine, or could you come to the front, please? Like I was like, oh boy, I don't know how this is gonna. But then this woman came and she was like, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I told her what I did, and she just dug it. And that's how it all started. Like, she digged my vibe, I digged hers. And then they roped me in, basically. I ended up working there 4 days, well, at first 3 days a week, then 4 days a week. And then I ended up singing for the people and walking around acting goofy and driving this huge bus, which that was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because imagine driving a bus. You think you're going to teach people meditation, and next thing you know, you're driving this huge bus, taking them to appointments, cleaning up, spills, and sweating and crawling around on your knees and getting people flipping you the bird because you're blocking their Mercedes and, stuff like that. Yeah. So I would have never imagined that my meditation practice would have ever evolved into that. And then it's evolved into other things too, really interesting things. One of the things I do is work with death row inmates in the state of Florida. It's a small number of guys, and I have one primary guy who I kind of made. Well, he made me, I didn't really make anything. You don't make a guy on death row do anything unless you're a guard or the warden. But so anyway, I started working with him. That's a whole long story in itself. And we've done some cool things like, get presents to guys who don't have presents, don't have anybody on Christmas and stuff like that. And some of the guys I work with did not work out. They threatened to possess my children, weird stuff like that.
Okay.
That's good stories, but so not everything works out in this line of business, and you can't really expect to be appreciated or any of that. Right. And I don't charge. So I do all of this just because it's a wonderful life, and it provides a really good example for my children. So
that's amazing.
And that's it. I wrote a book, and it just came out, by the way. This is perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to get to your book, but before we talk about that, you didn't always do this. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I started in the present.
No, I wanted to hear where you are now, but let's talk about how you got there. So.
Oh, well, yeah. You go ahead. Sorry. How far do you want to go back, I guess is the question.
We don't have to go back to when you were born unless you really want to.
Well, I was born in dirty Darby, outside of Philadelphia, working class.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it's a working class background, Philadelphia, pretty tough in the 70s. Yeah. And my father worked at a factory, midnight to 8. So he was always working and exhausted. And so it was kind of that culture. There were a lot of like fist fights and crazy stuff, like boxing in the basement where you would knock each other out. And
oh my goodness,
all kinds of sports, lots of bullies. Like if you didn't want to fight, you had to like try to dodge them. But
oh my gosh,
that usually didn't work. So I was like, there was a time in my life where I was getting in, 2 fights, 3 fights a week. It was just like, that's just the way it was back then.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Maybe it was me, but I don't know if everybody had the same experience.
Right.
For some reason, people wanted to fight me.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, I really wasn't into school, and there was a lot of pressure in my family. Like, what do you want to do for a living? And I was like 9 years old. I don't know what I want to do for a living. But there's a lot of that pressure. And but I wasn't really into school. So when I graduated, I got a job with the Teamsters Union. Like loading trucks real early in the morning, smoking pot and loading trucks and that type of thing. And then at night, I worked at a gas station. Back then you pumped the gas and you actually checked people's oils and tires and stuff like that. So I worked there, but when I was working with the Teamsters Union, I kind of got involved in some things. There was this guy named Little Sweeney I worked with, Little Sweeney, and he sold like illegal football pools, they were called. They were like these little tickets that you could win money on. It was a cash business. This was before online stuff. And he like got me selling them, and I did really good, and I kind of moved up the ranks, and then I met Big Sween,
Oh my.
the boss, and I started working for Big Sween.
Okay.
So I got a little really into it. I used to take my bets at the gas station through their phone, just in case the phone, my phone was tapped. So that was pretty smart.
Oh my gosh.
But I couldn't handle it, man. It was really stressful. So I did something. I had to get out of town and break that tension. So I joined the Marines.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, what was I thinking? I'm too stressed out. I'll join the Marines. That'll solve
Right.
it.
And of all the branches of the military, that's one of the more intense ones. So good job.
That was an impulsive thing.
Yeah.
Me and my friend Mike Mortimer, who worked, loading the trucks.
Uh-huh.
After work, we always did the same thing. We went to Wawa, and then we smoked a joint, and we were driving down this McDade Boulevard, it's called. It's like an urban type, and I looked over and I saw these Marines in their uniform, and they were like with the flag, and just impulsively he said, "What are you doing?" Because I pulled off the road. I said, "I'm joining the Marines." And he said, "Yeah, right, you're joining." I said, "You watch." So I waited for these guys to get done. And I walked up to the guy with the most stripes, and I said, "I want to join the Marines today." And they said the same thing my friend said. They were like, "Yeah, right." But 2 weeks later, I was gone. I was in Paris Island. So I was in the infantry, it's called, and I was also in this kind of special thing called security forces. So it was hell. I was overseas the whole time, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
And I don't really like to talk too much about all that, but I was definitely traumatized and an alcoholic by the time I got out.
Wow.
And suicidal, and lots of PTSD, and all kinds of stuff, depression.
Oh my gosh.
But somehow I managed to keep getting good grades, because even with all that, college was easy compared to the Marines, So
Yeah.
I managed to get really good grades and get a lot of scholarships. So I kind of kept it together. The people that really knew me knew this guy is messed up, but the ones that didn't, I could just get it together enough to pull it off, all the way through a master's degree.
Wow.
And but it was hell. It was a lot of unhealthy drinking, and there was a time when I was hanging out with outlaw bikers, and I got this crazy idea that I wanted to be their lawyer and go to law school.
Oh wow.
And there was like meth involved and crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they do crazy stuff. They do what's called a gut check to see if you're like, once you start hanging out with them, then they got to test you, So they keep you up on meth for like days. It's just crazy stuff. But I never went back. I got out of that. But I'm just showing you how low I went, and how it was like a dichotomy. It was like, here's a scholar, getting these amazing scholarships in Australia and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, I'm hanging out with pagans. So there was always these two sides of me kind of like fighting, which one's going to win. And the darkness, I mean, like I said, I was suicidal, and I knew how to use weapons, and I had a weapon, and it was loaded. And, I thought about using it more times than I can ever even explain. But somehow I never used it. So that's why I'm here now.
And I'm glad you're here now, so you can share this story with me and my listeners.
I'm laughing because it's like, it's just, to me now, that dark character, as hard-nosed and on the edge as he was, he's still in me, but now he's like cool. Now he's like funny. He's like, that's why I laugh at it. I laugh at it because he's still here, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I turned it around, didn't I? And now you're talking about me on this podcast, Right. So he's kind of satisfied that, there's a lot of little guys in me, you know, I'm sure we all have them. But the story, you know, gets crazier and crazier, cooler, depending on how you look at it.
Okay.
I ended up working for the governor of Pennsylvania after all that.
Oh my God. All right, let me put my seatbelt on because we're on a ride.
Yeah, well,
Continue.
see, it's going to keep going like this and like this
Yeah.
and like this, right? So I ended up working in politics, like in an appointed position, and I was in charge of this program in rural Pennsylvania. I won't get too far into it, but I was not happy, and I was still drinking, and I was getting unhealthy, you know, physically, because it was like an office job and it was very stressful. And like people would buy you drinks and stuff and food, and I was just getting a little overweight and unhealthy and high cholesterol and high blood pressure and all that. But one day I came home from work. This was 3 years into my tenure. And I turned the TV on. I'm going to try to make this quick.
No,
And
you're fine.
I was channel surfing with a beer, like in my easy chair with my big belly sticking out, you know, and I was like depressed and like, oh man, I got to go back to work tomorrow. You know, this is just what was running through my head. And then I landed on this PBS documentary, and here was this crazy Israeli professor bringing Arab Palestinian kids and Jewish Israeli kids together and teaching them about birds. And his program was called Birds Know No Boundaries. So he was trying to teach the kids that in nature, you know, birds can fly from Iran to Palestine over to Israel, and they don't see the boundaries, and there's no reason why human beings can't be the same way. This was his message. And he would get birds that people nursed back to health, and he would bring the kids together and they would let the bird go. So it was symbolic, you know. So I was so inspired. I had this really cool mentor at the time. His name's Jim Brett. He's known internationally in conservation circles. Like he found one of the first human footprints ever in Africa. So he's really well known. And he was one of the governor's advisor and kind of like my mentor, this real character. I mean, he was a character. We would go out drinking and stuff. And I went in, and he would always be like behind his desk, well, young man, what do you have to tell me this morning? And I was like, I saw this documentary, this Israeli ornithologist, and and he went like this. His name's Yossi Leshem, and he's one of my best friends on earth. And I was like, what? He said, yeah. And he pulled out his little black book. He used to carry it in his pocket with like a little pocket protector pen. Like,
oh my God. I love that.
And he went like this. And he went, he put his glasses on. And then he found it. He picked up the phone. These were old school phones. We didn't have cell phones, you know. And he's like, right. Dun, 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 a long number because it's international. Nobody else had international calling, but he did, you know. Right. And he's like, Yossi, Jim. And then he went like this to me. Here. Tell him what you told me. So I told this guy, you're so inspiring, blah, 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 blah. And he said, you want to work for me? You're inspired? Come, I'll give you a job, right? And when I hung up, Jim said, you got to understand, Mark. You got to understand Israelis. You know, I had spent some time in the Middle East, but not as much as Jim. Jim was like, you got to understand, he didn't mean any of that. But he said it. I heard it. I donate to him. You can hold him up to that. And I was like, well, Jim, how am I going to leave? You know, I can't leave here, my job, my family, my pension, my whole thing. I didn't have kids or anything. So that was, I would have never done this if I had children. So I went to my ex-wife at the time. He said, do it, man. You're 35 years old. Do it. Trust me. Do it. Just drop everything and do it. And it built. Like at first I thought, this isn't no way. And then it started building, you know? And I called Yossi in Israel and I said, well, I want to come. And then he stammered, well, what are you going to do? When do you want to? I said, I don't know. You offered me a job. He's like, well, I don't have any job openings right now. And I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a documentary movie about how nature, this was like just off the top of my head, impulsive again, I'm going to make a documentary movie about how nature brings everybody together in the Middle East. And he was like, he's like, well, I can't fund that. And I said, well, can you get me places to stay? Can you get me all the permits I need, all the access I need? Can you get me food? Can you do things like, he's like, absolutely. So he ended up setting us up. We had access to, even during a war broke out during the movie, and we had, the military would be like, we had the access where they would just say, okay, one time they said, you can go up that road, but if I were you, I wouldn't, because Hezbollah is up that road and you got a good chance of getting killed or kidnapped. Now, I was so crazy back then, I said to the cameraman, let's go, because if we get kidnapped, that's the best thing that'll ever happen to this movie. We didn't.
Okay.
That's how my mind worked back then, Yeah, let's get kidnapped. This is perfect. But we didn't, luckily, in hindsight. And I made the movie, and I lived in Israel. I ended up living there for over 2 years in a kibbutz. At one point, I was homeless. I was living in like a bomb shelter illegally. Like, they didn't know I was living there. It was actually nice and cool. But anyway, so I lived there for 2 years, and I lived in a kibbutz. And I came home one day, and the kibbutz manager said, Mark, somebody from the U.S. government called here looking for you from the Internal Revenue. They found me because I had cashed in my pension and didn't pay tax. So I owed like the IRS like 20 grand.
That's just proof the IRS will find you anywhere.
They found me on a kibbutz in northern Israel. That is not a lie. They found me. So I called the woman and the phone number, and it was an African-American woman, and she could have cared less about my taxes. All she wanted to know about was Israel. Have you been to the Sea of Galilee where Jesus, I said, yeah, I hang out there all the time. And, there's a cave there where Job bathed himself and this waterfall. And I go in there all the time. Not many people know about it, And she was like, honey, we're going to set you up with a payment plan. You don't worry about a thing. You just stay there. You do what you got to do. Well, I'll take care of everything. So it was amazing. She got it down to like $1,700, and I only had to pay like, $20 a month or something. And the penalty, like, she really hooked me up. I don't even remember her name, but if she ever hears any of these things, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because she saved me. And then my student loan deferment stopped. So now I had the GI Bill from the military, but back then it wasn't very good. Right. So I owed like 50 grand in student loans, and then I owed the IRS. And I tried like doing various jobs in Israel, but their work culture is 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for peanuts, like I just couldn't hack it. I had to get out of there. So I was dating this woman at the time who basically picked me up off the street. She became my second wife. I've only had two. She became my second wife. And I said, I got to go back to the States and get a job. And she said, I'm not going back to the States. And I said, what if I got a job in Hawaii on the island of Maui? Now, you got to understand, at this point, I looked like, a guy from Lord of the Rings, like Rasta version, with like all my Rasta braids were actually real because I hadn't combed my hair, and like my beard was crazy. I would roam around with packs of dogs. Like all the kibbutz dogs would follow me. We had a routine.
Oh my gosh.
Like we'd go down to the river and stuff. So she didn't really believe like this dude could get a job in Maui. She didn't understand veterans preferences or anything like that. But I got a job in Maui at Haleakala National Park for the Park Service.
I've been there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working for the VA and becoming kind of like a poster child for the VA and being like the assistant director of rural mental health for the whole Pacific. That was amazing. And I was kind of hanging out with the rich and famous crowd, let's just say. I was living in a neighborhood. I felt like the dude from The Great Gatsby. I don't know if you ever saw that movie or read the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy lived in this little cabin around all these wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in a tiny little farmhouse surrounded by famous people.
Wow.
And I became friends with some of them. And I don't know, I was turned off to spirituality in Maui because I saw things. I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but I saw a lot of hypocrisy. I saw very expensive workshops. I mean, just ridiculously expensive workshops. And I saw kind of people getting hooked up to chakra machines and eating nothing but algae and believing the end of the world, the Mayan calendar was ending and the world was going to end. And I was just so turned off I got really into like Hasidic Judaism. I actually hung out with a Hasidic rabbi and converted and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was actually in Israel where I first started meditating when I lived on the kibbutz, because a lot of people there practice Vipassana meditation. It's a form of meditation. So I really started there. But Maui kind of turned me off to the whole thing. But then I had this friend who's, you know, I really looked up to this guy. He was a lot older than me, and he was kind of an iconish type figure. And I just kept bothering him, like, you know, trying to get him to mentor me. You know, I read his book and he bothered a guy back in the 60s. So I just used his formula against him and kept bothering him. And he just kept telling me, read this book. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in Zen, man. I'm not interested in, he's like, trust me, this guy's real. Read this book. And it was a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, by a guy named Suzuki Roshi, who's been dead since 1971. And it was his lectures that his students compiled after he died. And I read a few pages of it, and I was like, basically this guy's saying, shut this book and just shut up and meditate and see what happens. Like with no expectations, just do it.
I think that's great advice.
So I was like, well, this guy doesn't want anything. He's telling me I don't need him. I'm equal. And I can, you know, I'm already a Zen master if I want to be one. I just need to stop and meditate. So I did. I started doing it like by myself, like on pillows, you know, like on the park bench at lunch. I just started doing it. And I've been doing it ever since. That's my story.
Woo! All right, can I take my seatbelt off now? Are we done?
Yeah, you have any questions?
I'm kidding. That was, wow. Yeah, you've been everywhere then and all around. So, but
yeah,
it's all those experiences that obviously shape who you are today and shape what you've made for yourself and, you know, the people that you serve. And the fact that you've been in the darkest parts, that you can serve people in their darkest parts.
Yeah, and it's like a gift, you know, like this is just all, you're around death a lot, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was around death a lot, and I still am to this day. Yeah. In fact, one of the death row guys is getting close, and he wants me to be there. He wants me to be there on the last day and at the execution itself. I mean, that's heavy stuff, right?
Sure.
And I'm at a lot of deathbeds, you know, with people. Sometimes they die completely alone in the senior home.
Yeah.
I kind of have a role, you know, I kind of go in when they need me. And I just had a really amazing experience last week, and I'm sure you can tell me a lot of yours, but somehow, I don't know how I'm able to do it. I'm able to help them come to peace and pass, you know? And, some of it's just like, I've loved getting to know you. You're a wonderful human being. You have nothing to worry about. And then other times it's like opening the window and showing them a tree moving with the wind. And that's all it
Mhm.
takes for them to clear their minds, There's
Yeah.
a lot of, a lot of people say they're having troubling thoughts or
Mhm.
hallucinations, if they're still even lucid enough to be able to describe what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so I've kind of jumped into that role, but it's heavy. When I first
Yeah.
started doing this kind of stuff, man, I was tempted to go back to the bottle. It's like, wow, this is like, what's the point?
Right.
I'm just going to end up in the same situation. So you have to like manage that. And that's where meditation like has saved me again.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm feeling great, my meditation sucks. But when it when I'm really need it, it's amazing.
And I found the same to be true for myself. I feel like when I'm in a darker place or even just a more somber place, meditation is so much easier to me than when I'm happy. You
Yeah,
know?
because it's balance. It's
Yeah.
it's the natural world. You've let the balance in by putting yourself in that balanced position. So you're signaling out that, hey, I accept balance,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes, and then it
Mm-hmm.
sends you what you need. So sometimes it's a little mystical, but really it's not. It's like, it's not mystical ideology. It's just plain, you put yourself in a balanced position in a safe place, and you stop all your sensory stimulation, and it just clears your mind, kind of like when you clear your lint in your dryer. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
but then again, it's kind of mystical, but
Mm-hmm.
really it's not.
So now I want to hear about your book. So now's your opportunity.
Oh,
Tell us about your book.
oh, yeah. Well, it just came out. It's on Amazon. It was called Just Stare at the Damn Wall. Just Stare at the Damn Wall. But I took the damn out. I listened to an agent. It's about the only
Okay.
thing I listened to,
Okay.
because she did have a great point. She's like, listen, you're in the spiritual market, and your
Yeah.
book has a lot of substance in it, even though it has humor and you're kind of, it has a raw edge to it as well. The
Yeah.
dam just is going to really limit your audience, I think. And,
Okay.
I listened to her on that point. But then the other points, she's like, you're telling people that spirituality is dangerous, that you're not an authority figure, that they shouldn't really listen to anything you say, and they should just stare at the wall. She said, how the hell am I going to sell that? So she actually talked me into self-publishing it, which was
Okay.
cool. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know, like, I thought, I'm not going to self-publish. Anybody can do that. But when you got an agent, like a big-time agent, saying, "Dude, for you, I think you're better off if you don't want to promise anything, if you
Hmm.
don't want to change it a little to become more commercial, you can just do it yourself." Just she gave me
Yeah.
some pointers on how to do it smart.
Good. Good.
So
Awesome.
it worked
So
out.
it's
So it's on Amazon. It's called
yeah.
Just Stare at the Wall,
Uh-huh.
and then it's living the universe from where you sit is the little parenthesis. She
I
helped me
love
with
that.
that too, because
Okay.
originally it was simplify your mind, and she was like, no, 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 no. So I
Yeah.
listened to her on that one too, which I'm happy, because it really is what the whole theme of the book is how to sit,
Hmm.
to be the universe, not just talk about it all the time. How do you
Yeah.
actually act it out?
Awesome. That's great. Well, I will put the link to your book in the description so people listening can go find it. Please go get a
Oh,
copy.
thank you so much.
It looks incredibly fascinating. So, I have a tradition at the end of my episodes where I'm going to pull a random card from the death deck. So, these are
Woo!
conversation starter questions all around death and dying. I'm going to
Yes.
pull one at random and you're going to answer it, and then I will
Um,
answer it too.
I
Fair's fair.
cannot wait.
Oh, this one's easy. Okay.
Now pull
Well,
another one.
I, I'll read this one, but I'm going to put a spin on it
Okay,
because
yeah, add to it.
the question in and of itself is just, have you ever witnessed somebody taking their last breath? So instead of that, I would like to hear, what is the most impactful moment of death that you have witnessed?
it was well, it was a Lakota woman, Lakota Native American,
Hmm.
and her and I had meditated before, and she had taught me how to summon the Great Spirit. Uh, I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's something like I can't Latantanka, something like that. Sorry if you're in the Lakota tribe and I mispronounced it because that's not appropriate to mispronounce that name. But so
Okay.
it was a name,
Right.
and I walked in. My boss had said she's not doing well. Could you go in? And I said sure. She's in liver failure, and this is it.
Oh.
Could you go in? And I said yeah. So she was laying there, and as you know, there's a look. You know, there's a
Hmm.
smell. There's everything. You just
Yeah.
know. So she was there, and she had her eyes closed, and she seemed pretty peaceful. So I thought, I better not. I'm not. I don't interrupt people in that moment. But
Right.
she became aware of me, and she opened her eyes, and she said hi. She said, without even a second, she said, I can't find peace in my head. What should I do? And I said, do you remember the name of the Great Spirit? And she said, yes. I said, what's the name of the Great Spirit? She said it. I said, well, say his name out loud whenever that happens. And that'll clear your mind. And she said, my grandmother told me to do that. Because when you say the name, she like lit up. It was
Yeah.
so amazing. Like, she lit up for that split second. And
Yeah.
she said, when you say that name, the Great Spirit, I'm getting a little emotional.
Yeah.
The Great Spirit comes into the room. And she was like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And then she closed her eyes. I walked out. My boss said, what happened? I said, she's ready.
Yeah.
Tonight. It'll probably be tonight. And then
Hmm.
my boss said a few hours later
Yeah.
that she had passed. So
Wow.
that was a great, that's like, I'm just, because it's, as well as I do, somebody's like asking you that at that
Hmm.
moment, like you cannot screw up.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want to say something stupid.
Right.
That's like a lot of pressure. Like, holy
It is.
God, like I'm
That's
there at this person's moment. Oh, like, it might not be her final moment, but it's pretty close, like,
right.
but I forgot one part of that little story. Before she closed her eyes, she said, what? I forgot this part, but she said, what do you think's going to happen when I close my eyes and wake up, for the final time? And I
Yeah.
said, well, you're in a tribe. Your tribe's going to be waiting for you. Your ancestors are going to be waiting for you. And then
Hmm.
she said, well, yeah, beyond that. I said, well, I don't know, Kathy. Nobody really knows. Oops, I said her name, but you don't have to edit it out. But
Okay.
I said, nobody really knows. I said, but you're a wonderful person. And I think you might have some kind of choice. And she said, that would be amazing. And
Oh,
then she closed her eyes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that because so many people look at what I do and they think it's all just beautiful, peaceful hand holding, and it's not. And there are times where people are absolutely scared
Yeah.
at the time of their death and they're looking to me for peace and comfort.
And that's
So
pressure. Yeah.
that's pressure. I can't say the wrong thing and be like, oh, don't worry about it.
You'll be all right. It happens to
Don't
all of
worry,
us.
be fine. No, no. This is why I spend time with my clients so I know, like you knew, and
Yeah, yeah, like
what to say.
you know what to say exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So fair's fair, and I feel like it's almost cheating to answer the question. As to the most impactful death I witnessed was my mom, and that was just a few months ago. I'm lucky that I got to be present for her final breath in that way. Like obviously it sucks. I wish my mom hadn't died, but because it was rather unexpected. But I'm just it was a beautiful full circle moment for me because she was with me when I took my first breath in this world. So I could be there for her when she took her last breath in this world. And that to me was like the best gift I think I could ever give my mom. So
That's
yeah.
wonderful. And you
Yeah.
know what? I haven't lost my parents yet. So there you go. That
Yeah.
probably will be. But
Yeah.
that's where like all the work you've done,
Mhm.
helps you in that moment, and it probably helped her as well. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
think?
I hope so. I hope so. So anyway, Mark, thank you so much for
Well, I'm
sharing your.
sorry for your loss though.
Oh,
That,
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's yeah, it's been a rough few months, but we're working through it, you know. Me and my dad working through it the best we
oh
can.
wow, your dad's still okay.
Yeah, my dad's
Yeah.
still here, so yeah, very much. Well, thank you. I
Well,
appreciate it. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, and taking me on that roller coaster ride all over the world.
it's yeah, you didn't hear half of it.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but we won't. Well, thank you again so much for sharing your.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy you had me on. I really appreciate it. And I have somebody who may be interested in talking to you about, your work, who may be
Okay.
interested in doing the same kind of work. If you can,
Yeah,
I make a referral?
absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, another huge thank you and shout out to Mark for being on my show and sharing your story. I know he has been so excited for me to get this episode up. I record so far in advance, you guys, that I feel terrible when I have a recording and I tell my guest, I'm like, well, you'll hear this in like 2 months. So I'm sorry, but Mark, it's finally out. Here you go. If you'd like to reach out to Mark, his information is in the chat, or in the, I always say chat, it's in the description. Please go down and get a copy of his book. My goodness, what a fascinating man. And if you want to reach out to him, you can do so through his website. And if you want to reach out to me, you can go to nikkithedeathdoula.com. If you have a story you'd like to share, you go to the tab Mark Podcast. You can reach out to me. There's a link there. You can just go to my contact page. You can reach out to me there. But if you really enjoyed this episode, quickest, most beautiful, easy thing you can do, doesn't cost you a dime, is just leave me a 5-star rating and a little review on Apple Podcasts, if that's where you're listening. If you're on Spotify, Amazon, whatever, just do the little rating. That is huge. It helps boost me up in the algorithm so more people can find this podcast and hopefully feel a little less alone in their grief. And that is all for this week. Thank you again so much for tuning in. And remember, as always, grief is yours. Feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC.